Okay, welcome back, and thank you for that brief pause. I know we were just a little bit late for this one, but that's okay. If you guys weren't part of the previous session 5 seconds ago, my name again is Mike Winsman, Director of Transfer and Technology at BCCAT, and I'm joined today with my colleague, Dr. Fiona McQuarrie, who's our Special Projects Officer. Hi, Fiona.
Hello, good morning, everyone.
All right, so we have done variations of this type of session in the past, but this year we're actually going to make a concerted effort to turn over the session to you. Now, we're going to start with a bit of a brief overview of how articulation went this year, but then your opportunity now, your challenge is to ask questions into the chat for Fiona and myself to answer. It can be about anything related to BCCAT. It can be related to transfer and articulation. It might even be something that's not related to anything at all. I will tell you that we have also put together some questions for each other. This is a bit like on Saturday Night Live at the on the Christmas special, where the news desk writes jokes for each other. We've not written jokes for each other, but we do have a combination of serious and not so serious questions that we can ask if you guys don't fill the space. So this is your opportunity, and then we'll turn it over to you. So first things first, I just want to give a brief overview of articulation. So we're going to give a transfer activity update. We'll talk about the articulation in general, what we learned, and then we're going to spend the bulk of the time in the Ask Me Anything section. So first things first, this audience, who is this for? This is for everyone. This is for subject matter experts. This is for articulation chairs. This is for strategic articulation managers. If you don't know what that is, that's a reference to a session that I gave last year at JAM, where I gave various tips and tricks on how to become a strategic articulation manager. And it's really for anyone who's interested in transfer and articulation. And I do want to just take a quick pause to just highlight something. This slide is in yellow. My colleague Jennifer Cook will often get on my case about how whenever I do a presentation, I always use blue. So I am using yellow just for you, Jen. So there you go. I'm not always stuck in my blue ways. All right. Your challenges is to ask questions in the chat. The more interesting the question, the greater the chance they're made. And then you can become part of JAM history and enjoy all the fame and glory that follows. So those are your challenges. It might be a bit of a Mount Everest for some, but I think that you guys are up for the challenge. Okay. All right, so just in terms of overall transfer activity in 2025, this is a bit of a lay of the land. I don't like to, just throw out a whole ton of data, but in case you're wondering what happened in the last year there was about 2,500 requests for articulation that were sent out for individual courses, and this turn translates into about 7,000 total requests. If you've ever wondered how many agreements get updated or how many updates are given to the BC Transfer Guide in a given year, there was 25,434 updates to the Transfer Guide. So if you're ever asked how often is the BC Transfer Guide updated in a year, you can just tell them 25,000 times a year. And in terms of the overall BC Transfer Guide, there are now about 300,000 equivalencies in there, and that includes 87,000 or so what we call non-member equivalencies. So these are equivalencies from outside of British Columbia or outside of Canada. And in total, there's about 21,527 courses with at least one course outline in our system. And if you want to know more about the technology and what's going on, we do have a session later this afternoon, which you can participate in. Now, we like to give a number of transfer tips to people when it comes to articulation. When it comes to transfer articulation, make sure that you are targeted in your articulation requests. If you are not sure where or who is coming to your institution, you can take a look at the Student Transitions Project as well as the Central Data Warehouse, where you can find information about which students are coming to your school. This can actually be a strategic piece of a tool that you can use to help tailor your articulation requests. You can also take a look at prioritizing where you receive your articulation requests from. So if you know you get a lot of students from a particular institution, you may want to prioritize articulation requests from those schools rather than just sending out requests to everyone. We get asked this question a fair bit. And so, again, yes, I see people in the comments are saying that this is a mustard colored slide. Definitely not green, but definitely not yellow. Yeah, I agree. The point is that it's not blue. I think that's the real key takeaway that we want to take from this one. getting back to the slide itself, when it comes to upper level articulation, please make sure that you only send out articulation requests for upper level courses to institutions that are willing to receive them. Not everybody articulates at the upper level. And if you're not sure who that is, ask us a question. We're not just available in Jam where you can ask us questions. You can ask us anything at any time, and we're happy to answer those questions. I'm going to turn it over. Oh, just quickly on the tech update. There have been, this is a blue slide, by the way. This is not mustard color. And we have deployed a significant update to the TCS in October, which was launched in pilot with in parallel with our Ontario version of the transfer credit system. We're also exploring AI and the impact on transfer credit, as well as working with micro-credentials. I'm not going to go into any details on this one because there is a tech update today at 2 o'clock where I'm going to go into a lot more depth along with my colleague Jen Cook. And I don't think there are any blue slides in that presentation, but I can't quite remember. But I'm sure you'll all attend that session. So that's where you can find out more about that. Okay, I'm going to pass it on to Fiona, who's going to talk to us a little bit about the different resources that are available for articulation committees. And over to you, Fiona.
Okay, so as you see on the yellowish slide in front of you, our major resource is for articulation committees is the Articulation Committee Guide. And this contains all the information that you need to know to be a leader on an articulation committee, like a chair or a co-chair. And also how committees operate and what they're expected to do from BC CAT. As part of that, we also have templates that committees can use for things like meeting agendas and to record their minutes and to record attendance at their meetings. I should point out that using these is not mandatory, but especially for new committee members taking on these responsibilities, the templates are extremely helpful because they give you an idea of the sort of information that's important to capture. We also have the handbook, How to Articulate, and this is like the master guide to articulation. It contains descriptions of the articulation process as it works within the BC transfer system. It contains a glossary and discussions of the different types of transfer credit that are used in BC. It walks you through the process of submitting an articulation request, the process of evaluating an articulation committee request, and the process of getting that finalized agreement recorded on the BC Transfer Guide. So it's a very useful resource for all aspects of transfer. We also have available for articulation committees a Moodle site that is hosted by BC CAT for committees to set up their own Moodle space where they can exchange documents and have discussions. This is really important because the work of articulation committees is not just meeting once a year. The committees that are the most effective are the ones that are active throughout the year, even if it's in the form of things like posting job opportunities at individual institutions or asking questions like, we're changing our course to include this content. Does any other institution have this content in the same course? And if so, where do you place it in the sequence of topics? Those sort of questions. That discussion goes on throughout the entire year. So all that you need to set up a Moodle site for a committee is to contact Adambella Chun, our technology support coordinator, and she will set the site up and she will make sure that it's up and running so that the administrator from the committee can take it over and administer it. Okay, I'm going to throw things back to Mike.
Actually, I'm going to throw it back to you. Well, we can both talk about this one.
Yeah, okay, so, yeah, fair enough.
This is about what we learned at Articulation Committee meetings this year. So we attended about 50 meetings in 2025. There are about 65 articulation committees, and most of the meetings remain hybrid, although some were online only. And we did get a number of questions that we will get to about, who covers costs and whatnot. But maybe I'll pass it to you, Fiona, and ask you about some of the things that we learned or that you learned this year from attending Articulation.
Okay, we found that this year several committees were a little challenged in finding someone to step in to assume the role of chair or to find an institution or individual that was willing to host the meeting. And hopefully we'll talk in a bit about the costs of hosting an articulation committee, which are really not that onerous. The lack of funding for attendance, it was a very big issue this year, that with lots of questions about what is the responsibility of institutions to fund travel to articulation, the value of being able to attend in person as opposed to participating online. That was a big discussion this year. Also, representation, concerns about institutions that weren't attending articulation, which is a particularly significant issue for programs that are largely sending programs who rely on their relationship with those receiving institutions to be sure that their students can transfer and transfer with the appropriate amount of credit. So if those receiving institutions are not represented at the meeting, that was identified as a challenge for the institutions that have articulation agreements with those missing institutions. And what did we hear? One thing we do at BCCAT is we keep a spreadsheet of all the meetings we've attended, and we make notes about issues that come up, and then we look over that and see and pull out what we see as common issues that were raised across multiple committees. A very common one was the impact of the changes to the international student visa, the reductions in the numbers of visas being addressed, and the impact that has, particularly in terms of enrollments and program sustainability. AI in the classroom, this is not, it is a transfer issue in the sense that the concerns that were expressed were if students are using AI to complete a course or to do their assignments, does that guarantee that they have the learning that the equivalency of a transfer agreement assumes, and whether they are really prepared to go on to subsequent courses in that discipline or in that program? Faculty workloads, particularly with many institutions cutting back or reducing the number of sessionals or adjunct instructors, which leads more work to be placed on the permanent full-time faculty that remain, or the permanent part-time faculty. Programs being suspended or canceled, and the impact that has on transfer if the sending program no longer exists, and changes in leadership at institutions. Leaders retiring, replacement leaders being appointed as acting or temporary or interim, and the concerns that were expressed around the lack of stability and the lack of institutional knowledge that results from that lack of permanency. So, Mike, I'll turn it back to you.
Sure. All right. So we are now going to turn it over to answering your questions, and we also have questions for each other. So if you have questions like who pays for articulation committee costs, what's the role of the SLP, how do you establish a new articulation committee, how is it that Mike and Fiona are so awesome? Those are all very, very valid questions. So this is your chance. I can see that there's already questions populating into the chat, which is really appreciated. You can use the QA tab, which is on the right-hand side there, and you can populate your questions, and we're going to get to them right now. I can see from the chat that I have unintentionally started a controversy about what is the color yellow. And I like that comment, L, about how this is like that question about the dress on the internet about what color is the dress. I guess I've started my own version of that unintentionally. But this is your chance, so please make sure you ask your questions. And I'm actually going to turn it over right now. So there are a couple of questions already in the chat. The first one is from Emilio Porco, and I'm going to read this out to you, Fiona. When articulating courses, most institutions post a course syllabus, so I'm assuming looking at the weekly breakdown that outlines the learning as part of the analysis. For an institution that articulates with a course outline rather than a syllabus, is having a course description and learning outcomes enough to understand the learning for articulation? What are your thoughts on that, Fiona?
That's a really good question. And usually it depends on the institution that is receiving the articulation request and what information they feel is necessary. Certainly a calendar description and a list of learning outcomes are very important in assessing an articulation request. But many institutions also ask for things like a list of the learning resources like textbooks or online sites that are being used in the course. And also the another fairly significant one is the form of evaluation. What are students' grades based on, and what are the weightings of the different components, such as exams or papers or group presentations or participation. That's the sort of information that really helps receiving institutions to understand whether the course is equivalent to one of their own courses. BCCAT does have a transfer-friendly course outline form, which is available on the BCCAT site. It's not, as with the information for the articulation committees, it's not required to use this form, but that template is a really good guide to the type of information that receiving institutions usually ask for when they receive an articulation request.
All right, thanks for that, Fiona. Emilio's got a follow-up question, and I'll read it out, and then I think I might take a stab at answering it. So it's a follow-up about the learning outcomes, and he's asking, would it be more beneficial if learning were outlined using a taxonomy, such as Bloom's taxonomy, to show the scaffolding and metacognitive process for lower to higher level thinking to compensate for not having the weekly breakdown? That is a complicated question, and if I had a little more another window open, I would quickly refresh my memory on Bloom's taxonomy. I can't speak directly to Bloom's taxonomy, but what I can say is that there isn't a standard format for course outlines that's adhered to by all institutions. Most outlines do offer the same bits of information, but it's often in different categories or different formats. But I will tell you that this is the type of use case that we are looking at when it comes to using AI to support the transfer credit process. So you can use AI to scan through course outlines or syllabus and put it into whatever taxonomy you'd like. And that helps you make comparisons of apples to apples rather than working your way through the different pieces of information. So we are doing some work on the AI front, and I will shamelessly plug my own session later this afternoon where we are going to update a little bit more on that one. But that's probably my response to that. Okay, we have a question from Sarah from Columbia College who asks, sometimes course A articulates to course B in one institution, but not to course C. Although course B can transfer to course C. So what to do? So I think what you're getting at here is what we call triangulation. So can you extrapolate different equivalencies based on how they articulate with a third-party course or a second-party course? There is not a practice or policy with regards to triangulation. We do know that many institutions informally use triangulation as a way to not only identify articulation opportunities, but to make for consistent articulation opportunities. A few years ago, we deployed a tool in the transfer credit system called reciprocity, and that enables institutions to quickly create an agreement. So if course A equals course B, you can quickly create a course B to course A equivalency. However, it is not always the case that courses are reciprocal. And the example that I often use is that you can have a course that's extremely rigorous. Course A could be very rigorous, and therefore it transfers to course B. But if the less rigorous course B might not necessarily cover all the content that is covered in course A. And that's why courses don't always go back and forth in a reciprocal way. Triangulation also brings that into question as well. And so courses are still required to be reviewed individually based on the course content. So hopefully that answers your question, and appreciate you putting that into the chat. Okay, there's a question that's being passed forward from Nicole from Douglas College. Are any institutions currently declining or revoking transfer credit for courses delivered with solely uninvigilated exams? Fiona, have you heard of anything about courses being denied credit for having uninvigilated exams?
I have not, because that sort of detail usually wouldn't be captured in a course outline or in a course syllabus. But if a receiving institution has a policy or a practice that exams have to be invigilated in order for the course to be transferable or to receive transfer credit at the institution, I would say that that's something that the institution should make known to other institutions in the transfer system so that they can either adjust their course or strategically adjust where they send their transfer credit requests.
Yeah, transparency, I think, is definitely the key in that one. I've also not heard of any examples of this. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but I've not heard of it. But if there are examples of this happening, let us know. We'd like to know more
Yeah.
about it. Not to say that it's wrong, just for our own awareness. It's always good for us to know what's going on the ground when it comes to transfer credit. We have a question from our good friend Emily Gadzala, last year's BC Cat Transfer Award winner, and this is a good one. If you could wave a magic wand and change, review, update one thing about transfer and articulation in BC, what would it be? Ooh, good question.
Ooh, ooh. Hmm. That's such a big question. I'm not sure I can come up with an answer for it. Um, honestly, maybe I'm biased, but I think our transfer system works pretty well. Um, I think one really good thing about the system, though, is that it evolves. It evolves in response to what's going on in post-secondary in BC. And I'm not sure that I can think of a single thing that I would wave a magic wand and transform, but I also am confident in saying that I think the BC transfer system does a very good job of changing and adapting when it needs to.
Yeah, that's a good question. If I could be really pie in the sky, I would say everybody should get a massive raise. I mean, that's the first thing. All post-secondary institutions should be fully funded to pursue whatever programming they like. I think when it comes to the transfer system, like Fiona said, I think we do have a very good comprehensive transfer system, but that's not to say that things can't be done better. What I would say is that we have a mature transfer system, and so that allows us to be strategic in the way that we support transfer and articulation. And if I could do anything about the transfer system, I would probably look at making sure that we can expand to recognize equivalency and experience in all ways that it is achieved. And there's already a lot of movement on that front with prior learning assessment, micro-credentials, and different types of programming that's available. I think that there's lots of areas that we can improve upon, and I think that we're going to be working towards that. If you guys have ideas about what thing that you would change, please feel free to put it into the chat. I'd love to hear your
Please do.
thoughts
Yeah.
on that particular matter as well. Thank you for that question, Emily. Also asking us, how are you both feeling about the Blue Jays loss? Celebrating, grieving, repressing. Everybody that knows me knows that I am a huge baseball fan. I'm also a baseball coach. I've been a coach for the last 8 or 9 years, and I've been a lifelong Blue Jays fan. So I was devastated on Saturday night. My house was like a funeral. Yeah, I was crushed. I've experienced some hard sports losses in my life. I was at Game 7 of the 2011 Stanley Cup Final, which the Canucks lost. But I don't think I've ever felt a gut punch quite like Saturday night. Fiona, what did you think about the Blue Jays on Saturday?
Mariners fan here. I'm still bitter.
Oh no. So you were fine with the
I was already bitter before it started.
I
It
see.
was one of
Okay.
those I hope both teams lose scenarios.
Okay. I actually do know that feeling. Whenever there's two teams that I don't like playing in a final. But yeah, no, I was sad. My daughter was sad. My wife was sad. But hey, it was a good journey. Okay, getting back to more serious questions, but I do appreciate a few not so serious questions. Stephanie Boychuk, our good friend from VIU, asked if we could go over what orientations are offered for new chairs or co-chairs. She feels that she's been feeling down on the aspect of her role and would be looking to find more resources from BC Cat. So, what kind of resources and training is available from BC Cat, Fiona?
Oh, lots of things. We have a training session for new committee chairs. We have a training system for new SLPs, and they are available on request. If you are stepping into either of those roles and you want a little overview from BC Cat as to what your role consists of and how we can help you in carrying out that role, just contact Annabella Chun and she will set something up, and either her or myself will sit down and chat with you and walk you through it.
Yeah, Annabella loves to meet with people. So do we. And so, yeah, if you are looking for a training session, a refresher, even if you just want to talk a little bit of transfer with some of us here at BC Cat, please just feel free to reach out. We're
Yep.
always standing by.
Yep.
There is a question from Jin Liu from University Canada West. Are there any general BC Cat rules regarding double counting, or does it leave it to the institution to determine their own rules? Fiona, do you want to take a first stab at that one?
Um, Jen, if you mean double counting by awarding transfer credit or recognizing a credential that's already been awarded and using credit from that completed credential for another program, it's really up to the individual institution.
Okay, yeah, it does depend. The answer in short is that there aren't any general BC Cat rules, and also just a big point of clarification. BC Cat doesn't have rules. We have recommended practices, but ultimately institutions are autonomous and they are free to make their own decisions with regard to credit. So there aren't rules. There is a report on dual credit or not dual credit. There is some reports on the BC Cat website that are available. The last study was, I think, around 2021. We got asked a question from Gene from BIU about this a couple of weeks ago. And so I would encourage you to take a look through some of the body of research on the BC Cat website because you should be able to find some information on that one. And I take your comment, Gene, in the chat there about how this could be an area for future research at BC Cat. Okay, another question from Sarah from Columbia College. How does BC Cat support institutions who want to host articulation meetings? This is close to one of our favorite questions, Fiona. So, what kind of support does BC Cat offer?
BC Cat can help you with the logistics of the meeting, like I mentioned, with the templates for the agendas and for the minutes and for attendance. Um, if there are institutions that should be at the meeting, but the committee chair or the meeting host is not sure how to invite those people, we can help you locate the appropriate person at the institution to extend the invitations to. And also, we like to come to the meetings. As Mike mentioned, we attended 50 of the approximately 65 meetings that were held last year. So we can also assist at the meeting itself with whatever might need to happen.
I will maybe make an assumption about the question there as well. If the question though is, does BC Cat offer support in terms of money? We unfortunately do not offer support in terms of money. The general philosophy is that the host institution does not have to send somebody and incur travel costs. And so if there are nominal costs related to hosting, that's where the host institution picks up the tab. More and more committees have been meeting in both hybrid as well as online only format, which mitigates some of those challenges. But I just thought I'd put that one out there.
Yeah, and I would add too that really the cost to the hosting institution is not excessive. What you need is a meeting room or possibly meeting rooms if you're doing breakout sessions. And some committees do just book the room and then everybody goes out for lunch and pays for it themselves or goes out for dinner and pays for that themselves. So it really isn't an excessive amount of cost on the behalf of the hosting institution to host a meeting.
All right. Sarah from Columbia, there's a lot of questions in the chat. So Sarah from Columbia College asks where the reciprocity and transfer friendly course outline tools are. So in the TCS, there is a section under one of the menus called reciprocity. And that's where you can find reciprocity opportunities based on the courses that articulate to Columbia College. If you're not sure where to find it, please send an email to either myself or Annabella Chun, and I'll provide you with the direct link. As far as the transfer-friendly course outline template, that is available on our website. I believe it's also on the articulation section. I might be misremembering that in my old age, but it is available on our website. I will just tell you, though, that it's not an expectation that institutions use it. It is basically can be used as a template or as a checklist against your own template. So that's where you'll be able to find it
There is also a list of elements to include in your course outline, suggested elements in the How to Articulate handbook.
All right, there's a question here from Ernest from TRU, and we had an awesome picture together last year with our waving our towels. How should we treat BCIT courses when their diploma programs are 110 plus credits? The bachelor programs seem to treat their diplomas as having completed the first and second year, with students needing to complete at least 60 more credits. Should the courses in the diploma program be treated on a one-to-one basis, or should there be a conversion factor? Maybe this isn't an issue if the residency requirements are 60 credits and only the amount would transfer. So yeah, that's a pretty technical question, and I don't have a lot of insight into the specific BCIT programs that you are looking at. I would say in general, you can take a look at the learning outcomes of the program, and you might want to have a conversation with your program counterparts at BCIT just to clarify what type of content is in there. Most of the institutions treat credits the same. It's a one-to-one, but you get the occasional schools like UVic, for example, uses units. So a 1.5 unit course is the same as a 3 credit course at most other institutions. I don't know if BCIT's credit values are differential in the same way. But I think that the best thing to do in those situations where it's a little bit gray is to reach out to the school to gather more information and do the best that you can.
Yeah.
I hope that that helps. Okay. Question from Kimberly McIntyre from Coast Mountain. Any tips on how to encourage articulation committee members to step up to the co-chair position?
Oh, this is actually a very common question, Kimberly, so I'm glad you asked it. I think the first thing I would say is it's really not that much work. The major task, obviously, is coordinating the meeting of the committee. Once a year, some committees meet more than that. But in terms of day-to-day operations, it's really not that onerous. Having co-chairs is an excellent idea because then what work there is can be divided between 2 people, or one person can step up if the other person has a particularly busy time going on in the rest of their work. So the selling points, if I can be that crass, that I would say is it's really not that much work. And I would also add BCCAT is here to support you. We are always happy to try to assist committees with running their meetings or with operating year round. And as I mentioned, there is also the training session that we can offer for new chairs or new co-chairs. So there is also support from BCCAT to help the chairs do their jobs.
All right, we are rounding out the time. I'm really impressed with all the different questions that are in here. We've got 2 final questions. One of them is from Todd Whitcomb from UNBC, who is a bit of a comment in terms of what I would wish for. Articulation between BC institutions works well and is fairly straightforward. The difficult ones are from non-BC institutions, so a bigger, better database of course articulations from outside the province would be helpful. Agree 100%, Todd.
Yep.
And we have expanded the TCS to include non-BC equivalencies, and that has been a big boost. And you do have the ability to use the TCS as a workflow for all your non-BC articulations. And UNBC is actually one of the schools that does do this, but not everyone uses it. And I used to, before we introduced that as a part of our workflow, I used to kind of describe as BC has a very strong and regimented practice for articulation, and outside of BC, it's a bit of the wild, wild west.
Yep.
I think that has changed a little bit over the years, but I agree with you. And expansion of what is loosely defined as the national system of transfer is something that has been very much on my radar. And we have recently gone live with the TCS in Ontario, which is a significant endeavor that will start seeing us include course information about Ontario courses, and there will be a session tomorrow at JAM about that particular project. But yeah, there's plenty more work to do. We'd love to get more provinces on board and have a truly national system of transfer. I share that wish with you.
Yep.
Finally, Lisa Randall from Langara College on the topic of the reciprocity feature. Is there or will there be a way for institutions to turn the functionality off, either as a whole or for individual evaluation requests, so that evaluators aren't tempted to default to using it rather than reviewing and evaluating the most recent outline? Interesting idea. Like you do have the ability to dismiss reciprocity opportunities. So there is an option to dismiss it, but there isn't as of yet the ability to turn it completely off. So that's not something that anybody's ever asked before, but that's an interesting idea and something that is available. It could be done technologically. So maybe we'll take that back and see if there's something that we can do in terms of greater customization. They do still see it if we dismiss. Yeah, I see that, Lisa. Yeah, like I said, it's not something that I've ever considered, but appreciate that question or comment, and I think we'll take that away. All right, you guys did an amazing job. It is 10:56. When we started this, I was a little worried, so I had a whole laundry list of questions prepared, but I didn't have to get through all of them because you guys filled the space, which I should have expected. You guys have done great. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take a brief pause at the end of this session, and then we're going to go into the next session, which is called Rethinking Syllabus Access and Availability, where we have Candace Carella, who is going to be joining us from the Academica group. So thank you. Please keep your comments, adding comments into the chat, and we'll see you at the next session. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.